Hi, this is a trail called the Rock Creek Rock Art site, and it is a little pull-off off of 141. I'm not quite sure what mile marker it is, but you basically go south of Gateway for about 15-20 miles, and there's a little pull-off. And the way that I know is I look up and see this big rock above it. And that rock, if you look at it, does that not look like a big sub that's out of water? So that's your giveaway, but it's this little pull-off. And the trail basically goes up this road right here, and there's a gate that you go through, and it curves around the field, and then it will double back on itself, and it goes up right there, and it follows a road. And then the road dead ends into another fence up there, and it goes around onto the back side of this piece of rock, is all I can say, because basically the rock art, if I wanted to, I could go straight up and over there. However, it would be very hard to do. And this is also somewhat private land that's owned by a very nice gentleman, so we want to respect his land rights. Because if we disrespect and treat this place badly, he's going to take away the accessibility, and that would be bad, because this is a very cool rock art site. So join me as we go down this trail and take a look at some of the things along it. We're now on the trail that goes up, and we're looking out on this big white rock that earlier I called a submarine, but you can see that it does look like a big submarine. That white rock, by the way, is called the Entrada Formation. It is ocean rock sediment that was deposited here by ocean. We know that because it has crustacean and other evidence of ocean life, such as corals and fish from the salt water and other things. But you notice how everything below it is layered. It's above that formation that you have the Cayenta layer, and then you have the Morrison. The Morrison layer is where we find a lot of the dinosaurs that we find today. This is called the Dinosaur Triangle. It includes a lot of the dinosaurs that were here. We have the Stegosaurus, we have the Camarasaurus, and the Brasilicnium and Growlitore that I did on a previous outing. And then, so we have that, but right now we're going to talk about this stuff on the ground. That stuff on the ground is called crypto soil, and it's because it is made out of cyanobacteria and other bacteria are in it, and it's basically a living soil. And the blacker it looks, like over there, it's a little blacker. The blacker it is, the older it is. And it takes a long time, depending on how much damage it sustains, to come back. If you damage this in a wash, it probably won't come back because it'll keep getting washed out by water above it. But if it's a flat area like this, it may have a chance to survive. It can take anywhere from 5 to 10 years up to thousands of years. So try to stay off the crypto crust. It's a living crust. And yeah, it's just is a way of keeping the soil where it is. And then we also have these bushes back here that have all these blue berries on them. The blueberries are juniper berries. They do make gin. They were taken when times got really extreme by pioneers. I think you can cook them and make them slightly more edible. They are definitely edible, but they just don't taste very good. So unless you're desperate, don't eat them. And juniper also is a tree of life. Many Indians thought that if a berry falls, it was a spirit of their ancestors falling to the ground. But yeah, it's a very cool tree. It was used for a variety of purposes, for their different tools and different things that they used. So just take your time and enjoy places like this. But yeah, this trail is pretty arid, pretty exposed. But it does have a lot around it. It's just a matter of looking and putting yourself in Indian shoes. I mean, if you're walking down the trail in this area, this is an unforgiving landscape, as you can tell. And there's just so much here, and can you imagine living here with not a whole lot of water? And I'm sure the abundance of animals was a lot more back then than it was now. We tend to not really care for wildlife like we should. We think that it's gonna keep going the way it is, and yeah, so just respect it. And on down the trail we go. Okay, let's talk about Indians and who came here. There were two groups of Indians that passed through this way, and one was called the Fremont, and they resided primarily in Utah, but they did come to this area. Fremont, you'll see in a little while, they're more triangular bodied depictions, whereas Ute, which were later maybe even derived from the Fremont, were later. But Fremont were in this area, and they lived and they settled this area, and they had sustainable agriculture and lived off of what was here. So they got berries from skunk bush and from serviceberry and the other things that were here. They gathered rice grass and prickly pear fruit bodies and other things, and obviously, as you can tell here, they went after bighorn sheep, and I don't know if there are any other pictographs or petroglyphs that were in here. And the difference between one and the other is one is painted on, and then one is like pecked in. It's kind of basically used with different implements and kind of pecked into the rock. But yeah, this is a large panel that you're seeing. Like here's more of it. You can see that more bighorn sheep, which is kind of interesting because now there haven't been really many sightings of bighorn sheep around this area. But you can see that this stuff was pecked in. You can see that someone definitely pecked it into the rock. And there's different things like that right there. You can't really distinguish what that is. But they used these panels. They wanted a place where it was out of the way, where it could sustain weather and other things. And here's some more. Here's one, I don't know what that is, but it's one of their ways of interpreting stuff. And then there's a little Indian. You can see a little feather in the top of it and the body. So those are probably Ute. And Ute were Indians that did roam most of Colorado and a lot of Utah back in the day. They were probably after about 700 till recently, and now they're on Indian reservations. But they at first were okay with humans. Then they found out how humans would lie and not be truthful, so they decided to be in a place that was a very hard area to be in, and so that's where you're finding them. They lived in wickiups and other pit houses on the plains of the Colorado and other places. They had teepees. They also had actual houses. And then here are examples of Fremont. These two were done by Fremont. And what's interesting, they call this the gateway tradition. It was an intermixing of traditions from a variety of different styles in different ways that were put here. Fremont, the difference is you can see that that body is more triangular shaped and very almost abstract, and who knows what that depicts. And then you have a Ute Indian doing the bighorn sheep, probably, and then we'll keep going along. But there's a whole lot of different panels in here, in and among this area, that you can see. Some of it may have gotten washed away. Here's a rock that may have been a test ground for Indians, but you can see all kinds of different picked-in art there. But yeah, you may be able to see more than I can, but I mean, it's very hard to see some of these images because they're not there anymore. Like there's a guy there that you can see. But for whatever reason, if you have a camera that is able to see better, you can usually bring it and see more of the rock art. Here's a place on this rock. You can see how someone was using it as a place to maybe sharpen or carve in, and there's a whole lot of markings there as well. And then there's some other markings there. But yeah, there's just all kinds of different rock art in here. And this is a pretty significant panel. There's some other panels that are in this area that are a lot harder to get to. This one is more manageable. And just trying to be careful. But you can see more art there. And then you can see some bear paws facing down. And we have some more art over here. And then we have more art down there. And then what's interesting is these bear paws are facing up. And you can see some of these creations. That one almost looks alien. It has two things coming out of its head. Who knows? And then there's a group of Indians that are gathered together. Maybe this was a gathering place for Indians. What's interesting is I had a colleague come up here and with a group of Ute Indians, and no one had the same story. These panels have lost some of their meanings. These are, yeah, I mean, some of the interpretation, I mean, it's just basically up to you to interpret and just use your best guess. So, but yeah, this panel is pretty cool, and this is why we come up here. But anyway, it's a basically out and back, but I'm going down now. We're still at the panel, but this is behind me. You can see that it's pretty cool, amazing area. We're on top of that big white or reddish colored rock is called the Entrada Formation. And it's the ocean sediment. We're up on top of it. But you can see this is called Rock Creek, and it comes down through this valley. This is all privately owned. I'm not going to mention who it is, but the road down there is Highway 141, and it's a gorgeous canyon. In my opinion, it's one of the prettiest canyons in Colorado. It's hard to beat. So if you have the chance to go down this canyon, you can go as far as you want. You can go down to Natarita and Nucla, which are tiny little towns. But yeah, just take the opportunity. And then we're going to pan down to the cacti. But you can see these little fruiting bodies on top of them. Those you can eat. However, in order to get them off, you have to twist them off with tweezers or a pair of pliers or something, because they do have little spines all over them. Then you have to take a knife and you can peel off the outer covering, and the inner looks red blood, and it's can be cooked in a variety of different ways and eaten, but you can't eat the main cacti. The main cacti does potentially have water in it. They are very good at holding water for a long time because they're in a very hot, arid place, as you can tell. But there are a lot of these are called prickly pear cacti. This is one of several kinds of cacti that live here. But yeah, this is a arid environment, and plants have to adapt to what is around them. But just thought I should point this out. It is a very cool hike and well worth the trip. It's about an hour, hour and a half to get down here from Gateway. Then you have to trek all the way back. Or you could make a loop and go down to Telluride and make a whole event out of it. Just watch your time and watch your gas.